Welcome back to another edition of The Whole Note. Today, we are actually going to be talking about a very, very good musical called Brooklyn. And with me today, I have a very special guest. His name is Marquise Fair. Marquise, tell the audience about yourself.
My name is Marquis Fair, and I am originally from New Jersey. I have been living in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. I currently live in Maryland for 22 years. I just had someone ask me recently. So that means you're a Marylander now? No, I'm still a Jersey boy. I'm still still a Jersey boy at heart. I am a local actor among many other things. I've been in, at last count, before COVID, I think I was up to 48 shows, somewhere around there, in my, career of doing some mostly community theater, but some professional theater. And Kenny and I met, oh gosh, how long has it been, Kenny? At least 7, 8 years, something
I
like.
want to say it was 2012 when we met.
Okay, so it's 9 years. We did a great play called Soldier's Play, which is not a musical, but actually would be really interested in seeing that as a musical. Actually,
Would be.
I
Oh,
think it would be really interesting. If if it's done right, I think it could be like a really good musical. So anyway, um, the other thing I want to say about myself is I'm super proud of Kenny for doing this. And I have a podcast, which we'll talk about later. But I've watched Kenny grow and change and develop, not just as a an artist, but as a friend. And so when he asked me to be on the podcast, I was like, oh, hell yeah. First of all, if Kenny calls and asks me to do anything, I'm like, sign me up. I'm there. So I'm happy to do it. And I'm very excited to talk about this play, Brooklyn, the musical, which is one of my more favorite musicals. I've never gotten a chance to actually be in it, but cross my fingers, one day I will.
now let's go ahead and just talk about the show for a brief moment. Brooklyn actually debuted on Broadway in 2004, October 21st, and it ran until June 26, 2005, which is a very, very short run.
Hmm.
It, I'm mad that it had a short run because of the quality of the show that it was. Like from the costumes, which looked like everything was made out of bits and pieces of garbage to make it look very elaborate and beautiful. Like we're gonna go into this a little bit later, but
That's
Paradise,
that
her
sounds
headdress
familiar.
was all chip bags. And I'm
Yes.
like, what?
So you should explain what the musical is about first, because to say that the costumes were made out of garbage sounds like, what the hell kind of musical is this? Like, what's this?
Go ahead and tell the audience about the musical then.
Okay, so the story of Brooklyn, Brooklyn the musical, follows the story of a young girl who is orphaned at a very young age. Her mother is depressed and winds up hanging herself, and she winds up being homeless for a while, and then she joins a convent, and she develops her musical talent, and everybody starts to see, oh, this girl can sing, and she always sings about never knowing her father. That's like her main thing, is never knowing who her father really was. And then she becomes a bit of a star, and throughout the entire rest of the show, it's mostly about her search for her father. And she eventually does find her father, but there's obviously complications. So we'll get into it, but that's the story of it. So a lot of what we see on the stage, and a lot of the sense of the performances, is about people who are down and out, people who are not exactly in the upper crust of society. And actually, Brooklyn reminds me a lot of, in a bit of a different way, but a lot of Rent in that way. Rent
Mm.
was kind of like, these people, kind of ragtag group of people who were struggling, right, and trying to get themselves together. So, yeah, that's the basic story. So, yes, absolutely. To your point, when it first debuted, and I didn't see it when it first debuted, but when it was first on Broadway, and I heard about it, people making stuff out of garbage. It was a very minimal set. Graffiti all over the place. It was actually really cool, especially when you hear the performances. Oh,
Mhm.
anyway, yes.
I will say that the cast recording was actually recorded live during one of the shows. So
Wow.
you'll hear the singing, and then you'll hear the applause from the audience. That those are all real. Those are all genuine.
Actually, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was real applause. You know, to,
Mhm.
to to do a live recording like that, especially for a cast musical, and that's the standard, is very difficult because it winds up oftentimes not being the best. So anyway, I'll let you go on.
I can only imagine how many times that they probably had to film or had to record just to make sure that all the songs are hit correctly.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the singing in this show is ridiculous. Between Brooklyn herself, played beautifully by Eden Espinoza, and Paradice, played wonderfully by Ramona Keller.
Mhm.
Those notes that they hit, ridiculous,
So,
ridiculous.
so the thing about Eden and Ramona, a lot of and some of the other people who I've seen subsequently do the show in smaller settings. This show is such a great sort of starting point for people for who are trying to like really get their voices out there and get their sort of presence out there. And I think in Brooklyn the musical, the soundtrack was the first time I'd even heard of Eden Espinosa, and so to watch her trajectory has been also great. And what was I going to say? I was going to say one other thing. Oh, I've seen the show 3 times, 3 or 4 times, I don't remember. All community theater performances, and I wish more community theaters would do it. Because it really, if you get the right voices and the right sort of creative minds, you can really do a lot with the show.
God, yes. God, yes. All right.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and break this show down song by song.
Okay.
The first song that's in the show is Heart Behind These Hands, which is
Yes.
sung by the ensemble.
Mhm.
Marquise, go ahead and tell them about this one.
So I'm actually want to bring up the lyrics also, but
By all means.
heart heart behind these hands is a song that is it's the beginning of the show. So imagine you got the overture, you got whatever else is going on, and it's mostly about what I'll tell you what it gave me when I first listened to it. It gave me that homeless people have lives and are real people too. And it's performed by the street singer and also the rest of the ensemble cast. But the lyrics, and I'm actually not looking at it. There's a heart behind these hands. There's a soul beneath these clothes. There's a story behind. Wait, there's a story. Tell me, Kenny. Hold on. That everyone wants to know. And if you have let me bring it up. So anyway, I'm not going to go into it too much into the lyrics, but the sentiment of this song is mostly about this is what you're about to see, audience. You're about to see the story of a very special young lady. Her name is Brooklyn, and the story of the street singer. Which side note, we haven't even gotten to the street singer yet, but he
Mhm.
is an integral part of the show. He really is sort of the ombudsman for everything else that goes on throughout the show. But basically, Heart Behind These Hands is supposed to just let the audience know. First of all, this is about homeless people. Second of all, this is not just some dirty, trash-ridden homeless people who are trying to take advantage of somebody. These people have good hearts. They have good souls. They have stories to tell, and you're about to hear one of them. One
Mhm.
additional note for a heart behind these hands, and actually the rest of the show in general. Um, the show really touched me in a very specific way because there was a time when I was homeless. I was homeless for 10 weeks on the streets of Baltimore. In 2000, what, 2002, somewhere around there. No, 2000 actually. It was 2000. So 21 years ago, I was homeless on the streets of Baltimore. Yeah, and performing, not unlike the performance of this show, and just trying to get a few dollars to make it to the next meal or to the next shelter or to the next whatever it was that I could do. So a lot of this speaks to me in a very sort of personal way. Heart behind these hands. Listen to it. It's a great intro to the show. Sorry, I'm rambling.
Oh no, no, no. That this is perfect. This is perfect. And then we go into hang on a second. I just want to make sure this is right. There's a brief little scene with the street singer and Brooklyn and Paradise and Taylor. And then we go into sort of like a flashback
Yes.
with Brooklyn's mother, Faith, and it's entitled "Christmas Makes Me Cry." Oh,
So, would you want to start?
you can go ahead, and then I'll go ahead and pick up.
Okay. So the thing about the thing about Christmas Makes Me Cry, right? Oh, one other thing, we should introduce who Taylor Collins is because he also is integral to the story, but we'll get into it at some point. Um, Christmas Makes Me Cry is one of those songs where I remember being in the audience when I first listened to it, and the sentiment of this, it's a flashback. It shows it's about um, Faith, who was Brooklyn's mother, and Taylor Collins, who is it's revealed to us that Taylor Collins is her father, but she doesn't know that at the time. So we're watching Faith and Taylor sort of perform this, and the idea is that these people love each other, but this is the first glimpse into what emotional and mental issues that Brooklyn's mother Faith is going through, and
Mhm.
it's of course around Christmas time, and there is a glimpse there, and I'm almost certain, if I'm not mistaken, shortly after this, something quite awful happens to Faith, and it sort of sets the tone for the rest of Brooklyn's sort of trajectory in a very meaningful way. And the one other thing I will say is, as an audience member, I was sitting there crying in the audience, and to see your friends, because I saw this once with some friends of mine who performed this, see your friends up on the stage performing such a beautifully written and powerful song, particularly for Christmas time. I'm a sucker for Christmas. Is It was just heartwarming and touching in a very specific way. So I'll give it over to you, Kenny.
When I first heard this song, it took me a hot minute to realize what was actually happening.
Mhm.
Um, but the very end of the song, where it's obviously implied that Faith had killed herself. You're just like, oh, whoa, okay. So we're gonna go like this now.
So
Got it.
now we're 3 songs in, maybe what, 15 minutes into the show, maybe 20 minutes, and there's a suicide. So now you're sitting there like an audience member, like, oh shit, like, okay,
This is where we're going. This
yeah,
is where we're
I'm ready.
going.
I'm ready.
Now, we do want to mention the Unfinished Lullaby, which becomes sort of like this beacon for Brooklyn because she sings it wherever she goes, hoping that, well, this is later on said, hoping that someone, namely her father, would hear it and say the words right back to her.
Yes. So Christmas Makes Me Cry, and at this point in the musical, we are introduced to Brooklyn, we are introduced to Faith and Taylor, and we get to see what happened to get Brooklyn to the point where she's at right now. And so Brooklyn, at the end of this song or this scene, we are introduced to the Unfinished Lullaby, which goes la 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 la, and clearly dot dot dot, if anybody if you're into music, oh wait, that's unfinished, right? There's something else to that. And Brooklyn never knew the words, so she didn't know all the words, but as a child, we tend to remember commercials, jingles, songs,
Mhm.
and that's something that stuck with her all the way through up until her adulthood, and of course through the rest of the show. So thank you for bringing that up.
Now, I want to go ahead and tell the audience right now, really quick. So, Taylor Collins was played by Kevin Anderson. The street singer is played wonderfully by, oh my God, I always get his name incorrect, so I'm going to do it correctly right now. Clavant Derricks. I hope I said it correctly.
Oh,
And
Cleveland. Yeah, yeah. I say Cleveland. That it might be Cleveland. Cleveland. I'm not sure.
and Faith is played by Karen Olivo. Oh, I
Mm.
actually absolutely love Karen Olivo. I saw her, well, I didn't see her, but she's in another musical that we're going to cover later on down the road.
Oh, what's the musical?
Shh, secrets.
Okay, okay. I'll just be listening.
And then we go into the next song, which is Not a Sound.
Yes.
And it starts off with Brooklyn screaming for her mother. And it's literally the aftermath of Brooklyn seeing her mother dead, pretty much. And I want to say she was 5 years old at this time.
I believe she was around 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to know that your mother is 5 is dead at 5, uh, you can only imagine, um, what that might do to a child. And at this point, Brooklyn is trying to hold on to any sort of hope that she can that everything's going to be okay. And
Mhm.
the idea of this, not the idea, I'll say that for me, this particular song, it talks about um, snow falling on the cold hard ground, just the way that the music itself, the intonations, the music itself is written. I got cold in the audience every time I hear this. I'm like, oh, it's Christmas time, it's cold, this is terrible and depressing, and I hope that Brooklyn gets out of this. So Not a Sound is, it's also, side note, it's also a really great audition song, because
Mhm.
it's short enough for somebody to be able to sing it and put enough feeling behind it that the director may be very impressed with you. So look it up. Not a Sound.
Okay, so just to go ahead and give away the secret of the musical that Karen Olivo is in. So I will be reviewing, talking about In the Heights for the month of June with a wonderful friend of mine, which that I'll keep a secret. Yeah.
They're making a movie of it, right?
Hmm.
Okay.
All
Let
right.
me put the
So
description in the chat
the
right now.
this is during this song is where we also find out that she was sent to the the orphanage
Orphaned
or
or
the
convent.
convent,
Yeah,
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 which is the Sisters of Charity.
yes. It's always that kind of name, like the Sisters of something. There's always something going on. Yes.
And I would
And
also
so
like. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say no. This so the next. I think you're going into the next song. Brooklyn grew
Hmm.
up. Is that where you are?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So Brooklyn grew up. Brooklyn grew up, never knowing who she really was. With a hairbrush in her hair like a microphone, she would sing her song that her mother would sing. Yes, and
Hmm.
it's sort of, this particular song is a great vehicle for moving the action of the show. It brings us back into the present to say, okay, let's speed it back up. We gave you a little bit of flashback, but you do need songs like that because and that's part of the brilliance of this musical, is that sometimes things are written in such a way you don't know what time period you're in. So Brooklyn grew up is sort of the it's we were given Brooklyn's sort of backstory in a very slow and methodical way, and now it's like, okay, and here's the rest of it because we have a lot more to tell you about who Brooklyn really is.
Exactly. Exactly. It is literally. I don't want to call it a filler song, but it is a filler song.
Yes, yes,
It's here to get you to the next point. Which the next song is creating Once Upon a Time.
mm,
Now, this song and the next song are kind of like, it's kind of like an arc. So they sort of blend together. But creating Once Upon a Time is literally Brooklyn creating this song where she can also incorporate the Unfinished Lullaby.
yeah,
And it's almost like a tribute song to her mother. And it's
yes.
so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And this during this song where we find out that Brooklyn has come over to Brooklyn, New York, and is about to perform at Carnegie Hall.
Yes.
Um, and she's hoping that whoever her father is going to be in the audience. So when she starts to sing this song, he will listen and hear it and
Do
know
you
the
know
rest
what
of it.
year this was set in? Like what year that, like the I mean, I guess it could be any time, but now I'm thinking like if she had done this at Carnegie Hall today, somebody would have recorded this, it would have went viral, It would have been on TikTok, whatever the things are. So this must have been before, you
Well, you
know.
gotta also remember, when was this musical made?
Oh yeah,
It was
that's this is back in
2004.
2004. Yeah,
So, like, the only true, like, social media platforms that were out there, I mean, we had Twitter.
yeah.
No, we did not have Twitter yet.
Was Twitter not around then? I don't
I'll have
even
to look
know.
this up later. But I know we had Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook. Right.
Facebook was like in its really, really like
Young
small
infancy.
phase.
It was
And
still
we
for
had
mostly
YouTube.
college kids. Yeah, yeah. Right, right. That's the other thing. Yeah.
So,
So yeah. So creating Once Upon a Time and the eventual song called Once Upon a Time. The other thing, first of all, masterfully sort of synopsis. I don't know. You gave a great synopsis. But the thing about creating Once Upon a Time, the other sort of acting mechanism is that we do get to see Brooklyn sort of be with her mother in a sort of ghost like form or memory like form in a very
mhm,
specific way, so that you're not just left with this terrible memory of her mother dying. It's sort of like her mother, we get to see her mother sort of loving her and saying, you can do this. Like she's always there behind her, which is also a another powerful memory for me. Creating Once Upon a Time and Once Upon a Time, there were times when I would sing on the street and go to sleep on the street when I was homeless and be thinking about my mom because I mean we were not on the best terms at the time, but my mom was always there for me, and I knew that my mom's love and the love of my dad was just going to carry me through. So yeah, yeah, powerful song. It's one of my. It's actually Once Upon a Time is my favorite. Creating Once Upon a Time is like my 1A favorite, if that makes sense.
well, let's go ahead and get into Once Upon a Time.
Yes. I've auditioned with this song 3 times, and all 3 times I have gotten the part that I wanted. Actually, no, 2 times I've gotten the part that I wanted. The third time, I wanted to be Seymour from Little Shop of Horrors, and I still have not gotten it. So anybody who's out there trying to cast Seymour, I'm right here. Cast me as Seymour. Anyway,
I
anyway,
am done with you right now.
that's
Once
all
upon
your
a
fault.
time, when I
Yes.
first, this was like before I even heard the musical, I heard this song first.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was like, Kenny, you got to hear this song. And I heard it and I was like, okay. Because like I had known of Eden beforehand because she was in Wicked. Well,
Mm,
she wasn't in Wicked. She was one of the alphabet replacements.
okay.
And I was like, oh, this girl can blow. What else is she gonna what else is she gonna be in? So when she did Brooklyn and I heard this song, she let loose.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she was hitting notes that I'm like, is that even a note or are you literally just ringing a bell? But this song is such a powerful high soprano song that if
Yes.
you can sing this song, honey, here, take my money.
I'll tell you, I'll say this about Once Upon a Time, and that it starts out, it's got a great arc. It starts out
Mhm.
very quiet and very sort of like subtle because it's following the ending of creating Once Upon a Time. And then once it gets into it, you this is a song for your diaphragm. You better support
Buckle in.
because it's really very powerful and very challenging for even the most seasoned voices. But the cast recording does a beautiful job of sort of capturing it in a very specific and lovely way. So
Mhm.
thank you,
Mhm.
cast of Brooklyn the Musical, original cast recording.
Thank you, Eden. Like,
Yes,
really.
yes.
Then we get into Witness to History, which is sort of like a leadway into the next song, which is probably my all-time favorite song of the entire show.
Mm.
Um, and it introduces the character of Paradice. Now, that's
Oh,
Paradice.
because
um,
what? Because what?
because she was born with nothing but paradise around her neck. And from
You
that
better
paradise,
sing
she built me a paradise. Paradise is literally the embodiment of a diva.
Yes.
no one can tell her anything. And it's played beautifully by Ramona Keller. And it, to me, it's one of the most powerful African American women roles that are out there. Because you got your Effie, you got you got Color Purple with Celie, you got like all these other musicals like Once on This Island, and then you got Brooklyn, where Paradise is unabashedly her. She gives, she doesn't care about your feelings. She doesn't care or about how you see her. She is living for her. And it is in this song, it is definitely like you are given the just the bare bones of it. And then when she starts talking, you're like, oh, okay, I got you, queen. Like the street singer says, she's a force of nature, a natural born world shaker, born on
Well,
the mean streets across an ugly road.
just to sort of bring the story back into it, at this point in the musical, I believe that Brooklyn is becoming more famous.
Hmm.
And of course, her story of trying to find her father is touching the world around. Everybody is here for it, and they want to see her perform, not just at Carnegie Hall, but wherever she can. And Paradise, who's the reigning diva of the decade, as they call her, is very threatened by this because she is known for her music and her sound and also her backstory because she has a similar backstory to Brooklyn, but people are paying more attention to Brooklyn. So she winds up shortly after this challenging her in a very specific way. But I did want to, and I don't know if you have, tell me if we have time, Kenny, but I did want to dive into a little bit of the race dynamics of the show.
Let's do it. We're here. Let's do it.
So, um, as I've seen it, on in the community theater performances that I've seen, Brooklyn is played by a white woman, and Paradise is a black woman. And even in some of the songs and some of the ways that they interact, Paradise feels like, first of all, you're a young little girl, right? How dare you have my sound or a sound that's similar to me, or Black people in general? And that there is some sort of like back and forth between them about not only are you stealing my sound, but you have the nerve to call. I think she has the audacity to call yourself Brooklyn, right? Which, for many people, Brooklyn is a very specific sort of almost. I don't want to say almost, but it is more populated by people of color than not. So for her to call herself Brooklyn is kind of a thing, and I just wanted to touch on that because the show does a really great job of sort
Hmm.
of highlighting that, but also obviously the story has to go on. But there are these race dynamics. There are socioeconomic dynamics where the more that Brooklyn becomes more known, she gets a little bit more money and notoriety. And Paradise is still like, listen, I'm gonna be who I am, but you're not gonna steal this from me without a fight. So I just want to touch on that because it's one of my favorite sort of dynamics in the show. Thank you for
Of
allowing me.
course, of course. Now, at the very end of this song, with a witness to history, Paradise does say, "And no French vanilla import who has the audacity to call herself Brooklyn is going to tell me otherwise."
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, she about to throw down.
She's about to go throw all the way down, and good for her.
Mhm.
Good for her.
Now
So anyway, go ahead.
we get into Super Lover, which, oh, ah, okay. After hearing Once Upon a Time,
Mm.
I just started listening to the cast recording from that point on. And when I got the Super Lover, I was geeking out because it combined two of my favorite things: musical theater and comic books.
Mm, yes.
And here you are listening to Paradise singing about how she has conquered all of these infamous and famous comic book heroes. And at the same token, it has a bit of a raunch to it. I'm just gonna read you like the first stanza um, for Paradise for this song. And it goes, "Well, Superman ain't packing no rocket because his red shining cape hangs in my bedroom closet. Now I hear Miss Lane wants to even the score. While I swing both ways, Lois, come and knock on my door." And I'm like,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
What?
And
Oh,
so, one other thing that I will say is musical theater, comic books, and embracing her sexuality. Paradise is a very sexual woman, and she is she's not afraid to show it.
mm-mm,
Okay,
not
this
at
whole
all.
song is mostly about she owns who she is, and in a very specific way, she calls out a lot of and subsequent songs. She calls out a lot of sort of the ills of society, if you will. So, and I'm here for it. I love it, and of course, also performed beautifully yet again um, by what was the actress's name? I'm sorry.
Ramona
Um,
Keller.
yes, Ramona Keller, and re-performed or covered by none other than Kenny Waters. If you happen to check, I'm just I'm just putting that out there. You can edit that out. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Check it out. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, all right.
There is a part in the song where she literally goes in on just America in general. Um, I'll just read you a little bit. Now, as far as losing innocence, America, you lost yours long before I came onto the scene. And no little Virgin Mary from Gay Paris is going to bring it back to you. I mean, give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. You ain't no melting pot, you are a crock. I'm like, what?
Yes, yes. And
Like,
all of this is spoken word while there is music going on in the background, but it's one of the most brilliant things about this musical is that there's a lot of like musical theater stuff. And then it's just like, let me sit you down, okay, and tell you about you, America. You in the audience over there, you're not any better. You're probably sleeping with two, three, four people. And you over there, you're a hypocrite because you're probably stealing. There's all sorts of these things that all of us have our dirty little secrets, but we want to call ourselves America the Great or whatever it is. And Paradise does a wonderful job about calling out each one of those. And it's even relevant, it's even more relevant today. So, anyway.
yes, yes. Like towards the end of the song, she's like, you got third graders walking to school with crayons in one hand and an AK-47 in the other. Well,
Mhm.
you look at me, America. You look at me and you look at me good. You created me, and I am nothing if not a true blue, red-blooded, homegrown, pull yourself up from the bootstraps American hero. If that's not the story of every African American, then
Pretty
Lord have
much.
mercy.
Pretty much. Um, so so now we've got the story of Brooklyn, right? At this point, we
Mhm.
have the story of Brooklyn, and it's very touching and very sad. And of course, she has a story of her own. Her mom died, and side note, if we didn't say this already, her mom was actually depressed and killed herself,
Mhm.
which is terrible. And the show, um, the one thing that the show, it sort of touches back on it, but I wish it did a little bit more of talking about mental health and mental issues because it's very important. So anyway, and then you've got the whole other side of Paradise, who is like the African American sort of us in every single way. And you have these two opposing forces, and you are very nearly to the end of Act One, and you don't know what's going to happen yet because it's just enjoyable to watch and enjoyable to listen to. Were you
Mhm.
gonna say something?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So the next song is a reprise of Brooklyn Grew Up. Again, Brooklyn Grew Up is like the engine of the musical. It sort of um, moves the action forward. But we are also the next song, the end of Act One, and I believe it's the end of Act One, is a song called Magic Man, and it's performed by the street singer. And we didn't touch on this too much yet, but a lot of this, the framing of this and the way that this is playing out is there's a group of street singers, and there's one main street singer, and they are telling the audience the story of Brooklyn in sort of a, as they call it, a sidewalk fairy tale kind of way.
Hmm.
And so this song, Street Singer, I'm sorry, it's this song, Magic Man, is about the street singers sort of playing a little bit of a fairy godmother, if you will. It's sort of in the background of this, helping guide Brooklyn to try to find her father, which is ultimately the goal of all of this, is for Brooklyn to find her father. Um, and so even in the words of the lyrics of the song, there's one part where he says, "Now in Cinderella they had a fairy godmother, right? Oh, but in my show, I'll be your magic man in this fairy tale. I'll be your magic man tonight, and from this patch of ground, I'll move the stars around and shower you in light." And it's one of those, like, you get the, and I've seen all, I imagine, and I don't know if you've seen it otherwise, the street singer role has, it's, that sounds like a black man, and it always has been performed by, as a black man for me. So I guess it could be a white man or whatever. But anyway, it's one of those songs that is a nice sort of touch point for the end of Act One, but it also is it made me feel nice that somebody might be watching out for Brooklyn, because she has a lot of things going against her. Um,
And
go ahead.
it also adds like this magical element to the show that
Yes,
all up until this point, the show had been very grounded. But now
yes,
you're like, oh, it's it's a fairy tale, so there's going to be magic in it.
yes, yes. And actually, it's so often in our lives. I believe in any number of things. I believe in guiding forces. I believe in angels. I believe in forces that are beyond our sort of comprehension, that sort of move us in a particular direction. And specifically for me, I can really speak to this. Had it not been for a couple of angels in my life, particularly when I was homeless, I would be in a very different place than where I am today. So, I'm here for the street singers, probably like this. So it's like Brooklyn. Oh gosh, I don't know which one of my favorite characters. Um, I don't like Brooklyn, but I love Street Singer, but I love Paradise. They're all three of them form a perfect trifecta. So anyway, we're at the end of Act One, and
Hold
we've
on,
all
before we go
started off
too
here.
far,
No, no, go ahead.
we have to talk about the challenge and
Oh,
Brooklyn in the Blood.
mm,
Because
mm,
the challenge is where Paradise lays down that challenge to to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's like, what? Why do you want to challenge me? I'm
yes.
just, and Brooklyn's like, Paradise like, did I stutter?
Mm,
Me and you, one on one, at Carnegie Hall,
yep, yep, yep.
and
And so,
then we get into Brooklyn in the Blood, where Brooklyn is like, look, you might think that I'm this little girl, but guess what? I it shows Brooklyn's power.
yep,
Like this is like the first time on where we see Brooklyn like actually go head to head with someone. Like she is she is this force to be reckoned with officially now. And you're like, okay, so Brooklyn versus Paradise, 1-on-1. Let's see who gets it. Let's see who wins.
so two things. One, I believe that Paradise challenged Brooklyn to perform on a stage at Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square
Right?
Garden. I'm sorry, thank you.
No, 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 that's okay. Two, it's also I was gonna say something. Oh, there's stakes to this. The stakes are that all the money that is being made for this performance, because everybody wants to see this. Paradise is like, I'm not giving the money back to anybody. I'm gonna keep every last dime. You hear what I say? Every last dime. And Brooklyn, of course, is a little bit more at the beginning, she's a little bit more sort of philanthropic, if you will. But I did want to touch on this specific sort of song also, and thank you for bringing up the challenge, um, because it is a sort of an allegory for Brooklyn being an outsider in a way. Brooklyn is an outsider, but she has a powerful story. She has something to say, and she has a mission, right? And she doesn't want to give it up for anybody. Whatever she has to do, she's going to do it. And then you've got Paradise, who is, the person who has grown up here, and is not going to, let go of her stake of in the claim just because some new person comes along. And it happens so often in society, in different instances where you have these two, you've got the indigenous people, for lack of a better word. Paradise is sort of like the indigenous person of this area. And then you've got this sort of outsider saying, hey, I'm here too, outsider. But, I'm not going to give away the show, but it is such a powerful thing, particularly because Paradise gives Brooklyn the opportunity to go head to head with her and to sort of say, "Hey, listen, I'm just as powerful as you are. I'm just as valuable. I'm just a great just as great a voice." And just I just love that song because it sort of encapsulates a lot of different themes. Were you going to say something?
It also has it also brings to focus that Paradise not only is an opportunist, but
Yes.
she wants to always constantly prove not to herself but to everybody else that she is the best,
Yeah.
and that she is the reason why they call her the diva of the decade.
Mhm. 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 Absolutely. We so I don't know where we are with the songs.
Let's go ahead into Act Two.
Okay, Act Two. So Act Two, I believe, starts out with the Once Upon a Time reprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, the audience is away. They've sort of gotten their snacks or whatever, and we're brought back by the best song of Act One. So to bring you back into it, what is this show all about? You've given me a lot of themes, you've given me a lot of different characters to sort of work around, but Once Upon a Time really brings back the heart of this show, right? We
Mm-hmm.
talked about heart behind these hands before, and really the heart behind these hands and Once Upon a Time is really the theme, two big themes of the show, because it really brings it back to Brooklyn is just trying to find her father. She's just trying to find her father. And there is, I believe, in Once Upon a Time, she says, I believe in fairy tales. And again, so you believe in fairy tales, there's some magic to this, but the overarching theme is that Brooklyn is trying to find her father, who is missing and somewhere that we don't know about at this point. Were you going to say something?
I think it's in this song where the audience realizes that Taylor is actually
Oh
Brooklyn's
yeah,
father,
yeah, yep, yep,
because there's a part in it where they both start singing the unfinished lullaby, and
yes.
it's at that point where you're like, "That's
Mm,
him."
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's one of those, as an audience member, you're like, he's right there, just turn around.
And so I'm trying to remember what how we were first introduced to Taylor, like what he's because he is in the present, right? So we see
Yes.
him in the flashback first, but he is in the present, and I think he is sort of another street person, or I'm trying to think about what he is that Brooklyn says to him subsequently. Listen, you've been here this whole time. You didn't tell me that you were my father. This is terrible. How dare you, sir? And it's one of those sort of another theme of like, wow, this guy really sort of left after Faith died or killed herself. He had his own mental issues, and he sort of abandoned his family, which is quite terrible.
I mean,
So
if,
I'm
if,
trying
if
to
you
figure.
really think about it, he's gone through a lot at this point,
Yeah, yeah,
and he probably felt that he wasn't good enough to raise a child.
yeah, yeah. Um,
And
but
and
as
and
an audience member, you're sitting in the audience like, wow, this is a lot. You've given me suicide. You've given me societal issues. You've given me, a little girl trying to find her father. And, there is something to be said about Taylor. I'm sure he's guilty, he feels guilty or whatever. And of course, he
Mhm.
does go into the next song, which is "Love Was a Song." Another great audition. If you are a baritone bass voice part, take this song, take measures 24 through 48. I don't know what measures, but like get get this song and go audition with it because it's another great arc. Um, and that's the next song in Act Two is "Love Was a Song," and it's basically Taylor sort of um, how am I saying this? Sort of laying out his backstory, but also letting the audience know how he's feeling about this whole situation.
Yes.
And at this point, I have to imagine if it's not explicitly said, he knows that. I mean, it's everywhere. Brooklyn is looking for her father. Okay, this girl is in Carnegie Hall, everywhere, looking for her father, and you are sitting there, and you haven't done a doggone thing about it. And I'm sure you've heard the Unfinished Lullaby at some point. So, what are you out here doing, sir? What were you gonna say?
See, I almost sympathize with Taylor,
Mm,
mainly because he, again, yes, he knows that his daughter is looking for him, but look at him. He's not in a place to where he can just be like, yes, daddy is right here and I am going to save the day. He's
mm,
not a superhero. He's
right.
not her superhero. So it's more of like an embarrassment that he is who he is and the predicament that he is in.
But the thing now, see, let me just say this because this is really important. It's not really important, but it is one of those things where I'm glad that we have a chance to sort of dive into this. Is that from my point of view? I mean, I see where you might sympathize with Taylor, but at the same time, I'm like, listen, she's not asking you for $50,000. She's just asking you to be present. She's not asking you for a whole bunch. Just be there. Just be a dad. And I think that so often, fathers or just absentee parents wind up sort of getting into this spiral of, oh, I have to be this and I have to do that, and just be there. That's where I'm mad at Taylor. I'm like, sir, you could have been there, and she's beautiful and she's got a great voice. Don't you sit up and tell me you can't be. Listen, don't get me started on Brooklyn now. Taylor, okay.
Well, think
Anyway,
about it this way. Maybe Taylor has a true commitment issue to
mm,
where he cannot commit his life to somebody else like that.
well then don't come
Just in
back.
case something happens to Brooklyn. Like what if Brooklyn were to die just the way that his wife did, and now he has lived through two of those. That probably would like literally break him. So he wants to keep his distance. By the same token, he wants to like hug and embrace her.
I can't wait for people to listen to this because I am going to be very curious to see where people land on Taylor Collins. That's all I'm going to say. That's all.
And then we get into the next song. I never knew his name.
Yes, and
Oh,
that's my answer. That's my answer to. So at this point, Brooklyn is singing. I never knew his name. She is responding to what's the previous song? It's called Love Was a Song. So
hmm.
she's responding to Taylor to be like, okay, you've told us how you feel. I'm going to tell you how I feel. I'm going to tell this audience who's listening in this fairy tale, right? This is how I was feeling. I'm the little girl. I'm the child. You're the adult, sir. Get yourself together. That's where I'm like,
There's a lyric that it says, "I never knew his name, but I imagined him a hero, a bright and shining knight." So that's that's
yeah,
some, that's like such a high pedestal for
it's
Taylor.
a high pedestal to live up to. Yeah, I mean, I guess. But I so the only thing that I would say is that even I think that Taylor could have done anything. First of all, Faith died when Brooklyn was 5. At 5, so if he came back when she was 9, he would have still seemed like a hero. Brooklyn at this point is, what is she, 16, 17, 18, 19, somewhere around there. She's almost grown at this point. So where have you been? That's where anyway. I never knew his name, and then we already talked about the other song, which was Love Was a Song. Okay, so
And then we
uh
get into truth.
yes.
Is that's so like love was the song. I never knew his name. And truth is one huge arc because truth
Yes.
is where Taylor finally says, yeah, I'm your dad. Hi.
What do you want from me? At one point, he even says, "Hey, what do you want from me?" Like some sort of what do you want? What do you think I want from you, sir? I want you to be my dad. Go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, no. You go ahead. You go ahead.
So the truth is performed by Taylor. Of course, there's a sort of a balance counterbalance between Taylor and Brooklyn. With the city weeds as they call them, they're really just the street singers, sort of providing an undercurrent between for this back and forth between Taylor and Brooklyn. And he's like, "Listen, here's what the truth is. I'm your dad. I was going through some stuff." She's like, "Listen, I'm the child. This is what I was going through, and you're not going to tell me that my feelings are invalid." That's the general sentiment. Of course, it's put more beautifully and sung more beautifully by Ramona Keller, by Clavon Derricks, and of course, I don't know who the City Weeds are at this point, but they should be commended as well because they really just sort of keep the flow and the action of the show moving in a very
And the
specific way.
energy, their energy throughout the entire show is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're like the Greek chorus, but
Mhm.
better and sassier.
And then we get into Does Anybody Want to Buy a Memory? And this is sung by the City Weeds. And it's sort of setting up for the next scene,
Yeah.
which is Raven, sung by Paradice.
Mm.
Ah,
I know you love Paradise. Is she your favorite?
mainly because of her sassiness,
Mm.
yes, and just how unabashedly black she is. She doesn't take anything from anybody, and she has fought for her place, and she will fight for her place.
Mm.
It's almost like
Do you identify with that in some way?
uh I would say yeah, kind of, maybe. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
One of the lyrics in Raven, which is the next song, is I fly like a raven in a sky of doves. I'll make you love to hate me, but that's still love. It's still love. And I'm like,
Mm.
just the a once you get the idea of the raven or raven, which is technically her, which is a blackbird flying in a sky of dove, which is all white birds.
Here's a person who is going to be who she is regardless. Always.
Mhm.
And there's nothing she can do about it. Paradise can't change her blackness any more than a raven can change its feathers. And so you're just gonna have to accept her for that. Um, and not just accept her, but like at this point, to my mind, she has managed to lead the pack. She is the the reigning diva of the decade.
Mhm.
So she's front and center. Um,
And I
so
feel like Raven is like this song is Paradise's very vulnerable moment
yeah,
because throughout the entire show, she is like tough as nails, like stoic. But like this song, you
a
start to see.
little bit of her backstory and her sort of inner workings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the next song is, I'm looking at it. I know we're running probably a little low on time, but I want to make sure that we get through.
It's fine. The
Um,
song is Sometimes.
Sometimes. I'm trying to
And
remember what the song is about.
it's it's another Taylor song
Mm,
where, he says sometimes a villain, sometimes a savior. And
mm.
he's trying to figure out what role is he going to play right now. Is he going to be the villain, or is he going to be the or is he going to be the savior? And it angers me because he had this perfect moment to really just change his whole entire life around,
Hmm. Yeah,
but he doesn't do it.
right. And I will say that I will say that that informs how I felt about Taylor earlier as we were talking. Because again, you had a second chance, sir, and you could have taken it. You could have taken the second chance at any time, but specifically, this person has been looking for you, and you still messed it up in your own sort of you know, as you were saying, he may have had issues. You know, maybe he has commit whatever the things are. But this still sort of makes me feel like, damn, like come on, man. Ugh. Anyway, I was looking for the lyrics to Madison Square Garden, but I am having a little bit of trouble because that's the next sort of iteration of the songs. But I want to go back to the story for just a second so that we can make sure the audience that is listening to this has kept up with it. So Brooklyn, looking for a father. You know, her mother committed suicide. She was moved to an convent slash orphanage. She uh, discovers her musical talents, becomes a big name, and still is trying to sing the unfinished lullaby, and everybody else is hearing it. Finally finds this person who sings the unfinished lullaby back to her, only for him not to actually embrace her in the way that she would like, and the way that she needs, and the way that she deserves. Let's be clear about that. So, you know what? Brooklyn's gonna do what she needs to do anyway. And she committed herself to this challenge against Paradice. Let's not forget Paradice, Kenny's favorite character. And now they're both in Madison Square Garden, head to head, Imano to Imano. Were you womano to a womano? I don't.
Hermana to Hamana.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, this like the next three songs is sort of like and once again is an arc, a scene. Is Madison Square Garden, then Love Me Where I Live, and then Love Me Like a Rain.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the challenge. This is the competition.
Right.
And Brooklyn is supposed to have her father with her
Right.
to finish the unfinished lullaby.
Right.
So Brooklyn, I mean, so Madison Square Garden, it's literally just the MC, you know, hyping up everything. And then we get into Paradice singing Love Me Where I Live.
Right. Sacrifice your paradise. Love me where I live. And that song is performed by Paradise, but it's also performed by, again, we have the lovely City Weeds as the street singers. You know, this sort of Greek chorus of undercurrent, and some of the lyrics just to share with the audience who is hopefully going to listen to this. Trash never looked so good. Okay, I was raised on hustle, baby. You were raised on Sunday school. I was raised on riot, baby. You were raised on golden rule, and I can raise your heartbeat, baby. Can you take what I can give? Sacrifice your paradise. Love me where I live. And you know, let me just say this: we didn't give enough credit. We didn't give enough credit to the people who wrote these lyrics. Okay, I don't know who. I'm trying to figure out who wrote this. Like what?
The musical is written by, hang on, I have it right here.
Yeah, I
Mark,
mean, some of these lyrics are fantastic. Not some, all of them.
Mark Schofield and Barry McPherson. They wrote the book, the lyric, the music, and the script. And it was like power couple right there.
Basically. And I will say one other thing about Love Me Where I Live is that it's another sort of opportunity for Paradise to really highlight again some of the ills of society and sort of put a mirror back to the audience members, the people who are reading this sidewalk fairy tale, whoever is listening, like America's got some issues, okay? And I am the product of that. And it's I know who I am, so I'm secure. I'm Paradise. I know who I am, and I'm secure, and I'm secure in who I am. But I'm gonna let you know, like this is everything that you're seeing right now. This is what you've put together. I'm a strong Black woman, but I'm also damaged in many ways. That is what I got from Love Me Where I Live.
Yes, my thoughts exactly. I will continue on with what you were saying about the lyrics. There is one line in this that I love so much because again, she comes out wearing this beautifully made costume piece that is nothing but trash, and she's like, "I call this Salvation Armani," and I'm like, "I'm done, done." And then we go into Love Fell Like a Rain,
Mm.
and Brooklyn starts to sing. And
Yes.
then when she gets to the Unfinished Lullaby, um, she says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my father."
Hmm. Hmm.
Nothing happens.
And so here's the thing about this, right? So Taylor comes out, and as an audience member, I will say that the way that the show is written, right, and the way that the songs are sort of put in a very specific way. The first time I watched it, and sometimes even like going back, I'm like, is Taylor gonna make it back? Because of the way that he left and the way that they left the Brooklyn and him, he left things. It didn't seem like this was just gonna be Brooklyn is just gonna stand in her own power. And I like that Taylor came back because it does provide some redemption. But to hear, to sort of heal my heart in the fact that you know what she does get and deserves to get a happy ending of somebody actually fulfilling the dream that she has always wanted to have. um so it's a very sort of sad slash moving slash uplifting song in very specific ways. Were you going to say something?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. um and I think the last couple songs are just sort of reprises, right? They're just reprises of
Magic Man reprise, and then there's the Street Singer.
yeah, yeah. So, Magic Man reprised the Street Singer. Okay, so at this point, the rest of the songs, particularly Magic Man reprise and Street Singer, are about sort of wrapping this all up, and in a sort of objective way, right? So you have the street singer, who is our sort of fairy godfather. You have the city weeds, who are the sort of Greek chorus, um, and they're just almost laying out some of the lessons and some of the things that came from this entire fairy tale. It's sort of like, um, at the at the beginning of a fairy tale, it's once upon a time, and then at the end, it's like pretty much they all lived happily ever after. That's what I got from Magic Man and Street Singer, and it's another opportunity for the actress who's playing Brooklyn to really bring home this there's I'll say it this way. It's neither of these songs is a powerhouse song like Once Upon a Time, but they are sort of for the right voice they can be very sort of touching and powerful in a specific way. What are you
It,
gonna what
it's
you gonna
it's like these two songs are the climax of the drama.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this makes me want to see it again actually. Like I can't wait for it to come back. Um, and then, of course, Once Upon a Time reprise, because we must hear Once Upon a Time one more time, just in case you forgot. And of course, it's a great song. And then we are left with Heart Behind These Hands. And the Heart Behind These Hands at the beginning is, again, it's about the city weeds. And I believe the street singer is in this originally. Um, there's a lot of lessons that we've all learned from Paradise, from Brooklyn, from Taylor, from just all of the goings on. But don't forget about the fact that everybody has a story. Everybody has something to say, and just because we may look different, we may be dressed in shabby clothes, or we don't live in homes like you do. It doesn't mean that we are not valuable and we don't have good souls and good spirits and good hearts. Um, and my our I believe there may be lyrics, I can't remember. Our fingernails may be dirty, but there is a heart behind these hands.
Mhm.
Were you gonna say something?
Nope, nope. Go ahead.
So the last final thoughts about the for about the show for me is, in case it's not clear already, you can tell why it's one of my favorite musicals. There's a lot there. There's a lot of sort of juicy meatiness in the show, just from an actor standpoint. There, obviously, we've talked a lot about the songs in the show, but there's also messages. But from a musical standpoint, the lyrics and the varied opportunities for the actors and the ensemble to really shine make this one of the best musicals that I've ever actually seen live on stage.
Well, that's a great segue because what were your top three songs?
Oh, top three songs. Well, duh. Once Upon a Time. And I would say, like I said, creating Once Upon a Time is like my 1A, but I'm not gonna put that in. If I had to count three, it would be Once Upon a Time, performed by Brooklyn, and the City Reads. I would say, hmm, gosh, I would say Super Lover by Paradise, and the City Reads. And probably, I don't know. I don't often cry in musicals, so Christmas Makes Me Cry is like my fourth top one, but I would say my third top one would probably be Love Was the Song by Taylor, because it really, at the times I've seen it performed, it's just him on the stage. And it's just as much as I feel some type of way about Taylor and the many things that he went through, it really just gives the opportunity for this actor and this vocalist to perform and be powerful without always belting, which a lot of these songs, can do. I mean, Once Upon a Time is a little bit of a belty song near the end, but there is something to be said about being just as powerful while still sort of emoting through a quieter, more subdued voice. So those would be my top three.
My top three, and you're going to look at me and go, "Oh, I see why." Uh, Super Lover, sung
Hmm.
by Paradise, of course. Raven, sung by
Okay.
Paradise, of course. And there must be a pattern. Love Me Where I Live, also
Oh, yeah.
Paradise. Because like those three songs is all that's her arc. That is
Yeah.
literally her arc.
Yeah.
And it is a beautiful arc, and it's still a relevant arc.
Yeah. I was gonna say no, I was just gonna say that those three songs and really just Paradise in general, um, is the really the definition of breaking the fourth wall. Like, hey, audience, I know you're looking. I know this is a play. Wh- these are the messages that you're supposed to be getting from this, in very specific ways, and not the other characters don't have a lot of opportunity to do that. So, anyway,
But
yeah.
like Paradise is like probably one of the most memorable,
Oh
just
yeah.
because her very presence forces you to look at her and pay
Yes.
attention.
Yes. Yes. So, listen, right, for anybody who's listening to Kenny's lovely, lovely podcast. Um, Absolutely check out Brooklyn the Musical. The original is it original Broadway soundtrack?
Mhm.
Yes,
I
I
call
assume.
it recordings.
Cast recording. Okay, well, listen, listen. Excuse me. Uh, I'm sure it's on Apple Music. You can probably find it for free someplace.
It's also on Spotify,
That's on
which I'll
Spotify.
talk about that in
Yeah.
my final moments.
Okay. All right, and have at it. I think my final thoughts are done.
So, what are your random thoughts on the show? You already gave a bunch, but like, if you were to sum this show up as an elevator speech to someone to really, really listen to it, what would you say?
Mm. Um,
Put you on
well,
a spot there.
let me ask: is it a an elevator speech for someone to listen to it or see it performed?
I'll say both.
Okay. Um.
Just to clarify, the object of this podcast is for people to listen to new musicals
Okay.
to go, oh, I kind of want to see this now.
Okay. Um. Brooklyn the Musical is one of the finest musicals of modern times. It explores the story of the heartwarming story of a young girl who is trying to find her father, which is the central piece, the central driving story. And the reason that audiences should listen to the soundtrack is that it's not just like any other musical. There are a lot of hidden nuggets, and the lyrics and the music performed really give the listener something to think about. Um, without being it be without having it be like, oh, just another show song. It's not like your typical musical, and for that, you should listen to this soundtrack.
All right, so final thing on a rating scale of A plus to F, what would you give Brooklyn the musical?
Um, A.
An A?
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any more final thoughts?
Um, yeah. I guess my last final thought is I'm glad that I have had the opportunity to talk about this because it is one of my favorite musicals, and I wish that more people would share musicals in a very specific way. Either they've listened or heard it, because it can be hard for you to say, "Hey, listen to this," without any context. So many times somebody has said, "Hey, watch this," or "Hey, listen to it," without really diving into, well, why. And so I'm glad that I had the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me to participate, and I cannot wait to listen to the rest of your shows.
Thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. Everybody else, stay tuned. I'll give you my final thoughts in a moment. Kenny's final thoughts. All right, my final thoughts. This is where I give my opinion on the musical that we have just discussed. Then, using a 5-star grading scale, I will break the musical down into 5 different categories: music, story, comedy, drama, and replayability. Finally, I will give it an overall letter grade with the help of opera singer Marseille Alundra. Now, Brooklyn is a very, very well written, musically musical. Like, the music in this show is so good, it is ridiculous. Like, any high soprano singer will be gnawing at the bits to be singing any of the songs sung by Brooklyn or even Paradise. This show, to me, I think is really, 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 really good, and it is definitely worth a listen to. It does have its faults, which I will go into when I do the breakdown. So let's just go ahead and go into the breakdown. So for music, obviously, I give it 5 stars. It's so good. It is otherworldly. The harmonies, the notes these women have to hit, it is ridiculous. Street Singer is literally my dream role, and all the songs and the notes that he hits, chef kiss, chef's kiss. Story, I'm going to have to give it 3 stars. The story is kind of convoluted. I mean, it is it is this tale of, oh, my daddy's in America, I need to go find him, and I'm going to go across country and sing a song at the very end of my concert, hoping that he'll be out there listening. Mm, I can't fully get behind the story. It's the music that wins me over a lot. Comedy. 4 stars strictly for Paradise. Paradise is hilarious. And the thing is, she doesn't play it as a stereotype. She plays it as a archetype. And it makes me so, so happy. Ramona Keller kills this role. Kills it. For drama, I'm gonna give it 3 stars. There's not a whole lot of drama. I mean, the first couple of songs, it does get you in your feels, and then all of a sudden it has your happy moments, and then it gets you in the feels again, and then it has your happy moments. But like all together, the drama isn't as amped up or ramped up as I would like it to be. Just my opinion. I'm sorry. Replayability, definitely 4 stars. I could listen to this soundtrack at least 2 or 3 times a week. Um, would I listen to it on constant loop? That's why it's not 5 stars. If I can listen to it on constant loop, that's when it's a 5 star. This one, I'll have to take a break from it after a while, just because it does start to weigh on you emotionally if you listen to it like repeatedly. um, but like honestly, Brooklyn is such a great musical. It is such a great musical. And the funny thing is, the rights for this musical was recently released, like I'm gonna say 3, 4 years ago. And that in itself should speaks volumes. So before I go into that, overall, I'm gonna have to give Brooklyn a B. It is definitely worth a listening to. Um, it's not a see. I debated with this for so long because I wanted to give it an A. I really did, but like the story and the drama sort of brought it down for me. So I'm gonna stick with my original answer. It's a B. All right, Marseille, give me that B. Beautiful. And that's it. So Brooklyn opened in 2000, September 23rd, 2004 at the Plymouth Theater, and it was written by Mark Schoenfield and Barry McPherson. It ran for 284 performances. Great. It should have ran longer, honestly. Now, like I said, the rights for Brooklyn can be acquired from Broadway Licensing and can be found at BroadwayLicensing.com. Again, that's BroadwayLicensing.com. Now, before I go into what I'm going to be doing next week, I would like to do a little show pitch for my co-host for today. Marquise Fair also has a podcast entitled So Here's the Thing, where he and several of his close friends talk about their experiences as individuals living in this world. They talk about topics like religion, race, sexuality. The link for his podcast can be found in the description. Now, next week, I have some amazing people where we have a very, very informative chat. Next week is the high school theater teacher chat with Michael Dendy, Megan McFadden, and Jackson Long. So, until next time, and as always, stay beautiful, you amazing creature. Take care. Thank you for tuning into The Whole Note. The Whole Note is recorded at Roxy Regional Theatre in Clarksville, Tennessee. Intro and outro, The Bumble by Joshua Pyron, and was inspired by The Flight of the Bumblebee. Grading scale notes sung by Marseille Alundra. This podcast is edited and produced by me, Kenneth L. Waters Jr. Tune in next week and discover a new musical. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, stay amazing, you beautiful creature.